Hello and welcome to the UPSC Mains PYQ series by Shikara Academy. In this live series, we are discussing about the GS Mains questions, especially from GS 1, 2, 3 asked by UPSC over the past years. In today's session, we will be discussing about the 2024 GS Paper 3 and the first five questions, that is question 1 to question 5. So let's start with the answer writing. Now, this question was asked in 2024 GS Paper 3, question number 1. Examine the pattern and trend of public expenditure on social services in the post-reforms period in India. So, post-reform period, that means it is talking about post-1991 reforms, the LPG reforms of 1991. To what extent this has been in consonance with achieving the objective of inclusive growth? It is a 10-mark question and we have to answer it in 150 words. Now, mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of economic development or economy, and the topic is the effect of liberalization on the economy. And the second topic is the topic of inclusive growth and the issues arising out of it. Because the question is asking, so it is a mixed question. It is asking about the post reforms as well as the inclusive growth. Now, the approach that we'll be taking in writing the answer for this question is that in introduction, we will be describing the post 1991 economic reforms, what liberalization, privatization, and globalization reforms, the LPG reforms of 1991, post the reforms. Then in body, we address the demand of question. And the question is asking us to identify the patterns and trends and highlight the trends that we have observed after the 1991 reforms. Then we have to write the impact of these reforms. Are these reforms in consonance with the concept of inclusive growth? Okay. Then, in conclusion, we will write a forward looking line or a way forward. Now, starting with the introduction, and please note that in this model answer also, we will be sticking to the word limit. So, I have tried to to write the answer within the prescribed word limit, that is 150 words. Now, starting with the introduction, the post 1991 economic reforms in India led to the reorientation of our fiscal priorities, including a gradual increase in the public expenditure on social services such as education, health, and rural development. So, we have described the post 1991 reforms and what it has led to. So, it has led to the reorientation of the fiscal priorities of government, and there has been a gradual the consistent and gradual increase in the public expenditure on various social services, such as the health, education, as well as rural development. Then we have to write the patterns. Like we have to substantiate what we have written in the introduction with the data, or we have to elaborate it. So first is the increased allocation. So social sector spending as a percentage of GDP has shown a steady rise, especially after the 2000s. So it was not seen in 1990s. 1990s we were still struggling and the economy was recovering. But after the 2000s, there has been a steady increase in the percentage of GDP that is spent on the social sector. Then the focus areas are education, health, and rural development. So education, there are flagship species like the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, and the Right to Education Act boosted the investment in elementary education. Then for health, there has been a National Rural Health Mission that was launched in 2005, and the recent one is the Ayushman Bharat. It has expanded the healthcare access. Then for rural development, we have schemes like the MG Narega to enhance the livelihood security of the rural population. Now, what is the overall impact of this of these post 1991 reforms on the inclusive growth? So these investments in the social security sector have significantly improved literacy rates. It has improved health indicators such as the maternal mortality rate or the infant mortality rate, and it has improved the employment in population, especially among the marginalized sections of the population. However, the interstate disparities and inadequate implementation have limited their full potential. Okay, so it has not been all inclusive, even though some marginalized section of the population they have received the benefits or they have seen significant improvement, but there are interstate disparities. Now, in conclusion, we have to write a forward-looking line or a way forward. Okay, so public expenditure on social services post reforms has broadly aligned with the goal of inclusive growth. So broadly, we have aligned the public expenditure on the social services for the inclusive growth, but greater efficiency is required, accountability is required, and equity in spending are needed to make the impact more robust and more uniform. Okay, so this way we can conclude the answer. Moving on to the next question, that is question number 2. What are the causes of persistent high food inflation in India? Comment on the effectiveness of the monetary policy of RBI to control this type of inflation. Now, this is a question on food inflation, a 10-mark question that we have to answer in 150 words. And is asking two things. Firstly, it is asking us to highlight or to write what are the causes of persistent high food inflation in India. Okay. What are the factors? What are the causes? Secondly, it is asking us to examine whether the effectiveness of the monetary policy of the RBI to control this type of inflation, that is, to control the food inflation. Now, mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of economic development, and the topic is Indian economy and issues related to planning, food mobilization, and resources. That is, it is mainly a question on food inflation. Now, for approach in writing the answer, in introduction, we will be describing the food inflation. Then in body, we address the demand of question by writing the causes of persistent high food inflation and the effectiveness of RBI's monetary policy in tackling the persistent food inflation. Then in conclusion, we write a way forward or a forward-looking answer. Now, starting with the introduction, the food inflation in India has remained a persistent challenge. So, we are agreeing with the question that it has remained a persistent challenge affecting households' budgets and economic stability. Okay. So, what is the impact? That it impacts the household budgets, the overall common man's household budget, as well as the overall economic stability of the country. Given food's large weight in the consumer price index. So, we know that for the consumer price index, the largest constituent is the food, and it is sustained high prices also pose risk of the overall inflation management. Then we write the causes of persistent food inflation. So we have supply side bottlenecks such as poor cold storage, poor logistics, as well as market linkages. So after the produce on the supply side, in supplying the food grains or supplying the food stuff to the market is hampered by the absence of or lack of availability or of the cold storage, the logistics, as well as market linkages. Then there is monsoon dependence. Indian agriculture's reliant is heavily reliant on the rainfall. It leads to the fluctuating output. Okay. So majority of more than 50% of agriculture in India is still rain-fed agriculture. Okay. Then we have high input costs, rising prices of fertilizers, diesels, and labor. Okay. So costs are high. There are supply side bottlenecks. There is monsoon dependence. Then there are dietary shift in the population. So increased demand of protein rich and perishable food. So over the years, there has been with rising income of people are demanding more protein rich, more nutritive, as well as the perishable food such as fruits and vegetables. They are no longer limiting themselves for the intake of the food grains only. Then there are policy interventions. So frequent changes in the MSPs, that is minimum support price, export import controls, and the procurement policies of the government also leads to the persistent food inflation. Then we have to discuss the effectiveness of RBI's monetary policy. First is the limited efficacy. So food inflation is largely supply driven, okay, where interest rates change have minimal direct effect. So when RBI changes its monetary policy or RBI changes the interest rates, so it is targeting the demand side of economy. But the food inflation is largely because of the supply side of economy. So there is limited efficacy. Then the monetary tools, RBI uses repo rate and liquidity tools to manage inflation expectations. Third is the need for complementary measures. So coordination with fiscal and agri policies is essential. So it is not only that monetary policy. So monetary policy has to be balanced with the fiscal policy as well as the food or agriculture policies in order to make sure the food inflation is kept in check. Then in conclusion, we write a forward-looking line. While RBI plays a key role in maintaining headline inflation, long-term control of food inflation demands structural reforms in agriculture, storage, and distribution networks. Okay. So this way, we have given some of the suggestions or a way forward in the answer. Moving on to the next question, that is question number 3. What were the factors responsible for successful implementation of land reforms in some part of the country? Elaborate. Okay. It is a 10-mark question that we have to answer in 150 words. Now, mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of economic development and particularly from the topic land reforms in India. And we have to write about the different factors or the different causes which led to the successful implementation of land reforms in some parts of the country. In some parts, we had successful implementation of the land reforms. In some parts, we did not have or we did not achieve that much success in the land reforms. Now, starting with the approach, in introduction, we describe the land reforms. In body, we address the demand of question by writing the various factors for successful implementation. Then, in conclusion, we will be summarizing the answer. Now, starting with the introduction, land reforms in India aimed at redistributing land to reduce inequality and empower the rural poor. So, what it caters to? It caters to the redistributing of land. So, land reform leads to distributing of land. And what were the objective? To reduce inequality and to empower the rural poor people. While implementation was uneven across the country, its implementation was uneven, certain states, they saw a greater success. So in a way, we have connect. This is second is the connecting line by which we are connecting the introduction and the body. Now, we have to write the key factors for the successful implementation. First, foremost, most importantly, is the political will. So states like West Bengal and Kerala saw strong leadership, especially the communist parties, the government of the communist parties, the left governments. And with these governments or these left parties, they were committed to the agrarian reforms. Second is the active bureaucracy. So with the political will comes the active bureaucracy. So effective and impartial land administration helped identify surplus land and distribute it fairly. Third is the people's movement. So grassroots activism by farmers union and civil society created pressure for the implementation. Fourth is the land record maintenance. So states with better land records could identify beneficiaries and enforce the sealing effectively. Okay. And lastly is the decentralized governance. Panchayati Raj institutions played a role in local monitoring as well as grievance redressal. Okay. So it depends on the political will, the decentralized governance, which leads to active bureaucracy or the bureaucratic participation. And this overall thing will not have been successful if it has not become a people's movement in these states. Okay. And the availability of land records was an added advantage or an added factor. Then, in conclusion, we will be summarizing the answer by writing the success of land reforms depended largely on the political intent. So, as discussed earlier, political will is the foremost important factor. Administrative efficiency, okay, because the administration or the bureaucracy, if there is political will, if there is political intent, then bureaucracy will have to implement it effectively. And the community participation. So community participation drives this movement or the land reform movement at the grassroots level. These experiences highlight the need of for tailored region specific strategies in the land governance. Moving on to the next question, that is question number 4. Explain the role of millets for ensuring health and nutritional security in India. Now, this is not a question of polity, and this is a question of mainly agriculture or economic development. Okay, mapping it with the syllabus, it is a question asked from the subject of economic development or agriculture. And it is asking about the major crops in India. So it is asking, the question is based on millets and the issues of food security. So it is taking two topics into consideration. Okay. It is a 10-mark question that we have to answer in 150 words. Now, the approach that we'll be taking in answering such a question is that in introduction, we describe millets. In body, we will be writing about the nutritional and the health benefits as well as the contribution to the nutritional security of the millets. Lastly, in conclusion, we write a way forward for the answer. Now, introduction. Millets are often called as nutri cereals, and these are traditional grains grown in India. So, these are nutri cereals, that is nutrient rich cereals, which are traditionally, so these are the traditionally grown grains in India for centuries. With growing concerns over malnutrition and lifestyle diseases, millets are regaining prominence for their health and sustainability benefits. Okay, so in a way, we have connected the introduction with the body. Okay, why the millets are in focus area? Because increasing malnutrition in the population. Okay, because the population is in India, when we say about food security. Okay, so food security is predominantly aimed towards providing the population with the food grains, okay, or the cereals, mainly wheat and rice. Okay, but this has led to overall malnutrition because the wheat and rice, they just fill the stomachs of the people, but they have very less overall nutritive value. They just provide the calories and no other nutritional benefits. So the problem of malnutrition is increasing in the population. That is why there has been a shift towards the millet and the increased lifestyle diseases in the population, especially in the urban areas. Okay, so these two factors have led for the millets to regain prominence. Now, what are the nutritional and health benefits? So, first is that the millets are rich in nutrients. The millets are high in dietary fiber. They are high in iron, calcium, zinc, and B complex vitamins. Second, they are diabetic friendly. Diabetes is the number one lifestyle disease in the country, and India is also known as the diabetic capital of the world. Okay, so the millets, they have low glycemic index, which helps in managing the blood sugar levels. So they do not spike the sugar level of the blood after their intake. Thirdly, they are gluten free. Millets are gluten free and are suitable for people with the gluten intolerance or the celiac disease. So wheat, we know, is a very so gluten is a protein. So this gluten protein is found predominantly in wheat, and it leads to various conditions like inflammation in the body. Gluten, many of the parts of the population, they are becoming gluten intolerant day by day. Then we have to discuss about the contribution to nutritional security. Combating malnutrition, regular millet consumption can address anemia and micronutrient deficiencies. Micronutrients like different minerals like zinc, calcium, iron. Second is that these are the resilient crops. These are resistant, they are climate smart, and they ensure food security in the arid region. So they are, uh, they do not require thorough irrigation facilities. They can be grown in the rain-fed areas. These are drought resistant, and with the climate change becoming more and more inevitable and impacting agriculture, the millets are considered as climate smart crops. Then the inclusion in schemes. So government initiatives like the National Millet Mission and its inclusion in the public distribution system aim to mainstream the millets. So government over the last few years is trying to mainstream the millets by launching the millet mission as well as by including the millets in the ration shops or the public distribution scheme. Then in conclusion, we write that promoting millets can improve India's nutritional outcomes. It's strengthen the health and support sustainable agriculture. So it has both benefits for the health of the population as well as for the sustainable agriculture, making them vital for national food as well as the nutritional security. Okay, please note that food security includes food security is a larger term which should be including the nutritional security. Food security is incomplete without the nutritional security. Then moving on to the last question, that is question 5. What is the present world scenario of intellectual property rights with respect to life materials? Although India is second in the world to file patents, still only a few have been commercialized. Explain the reasons behind this less commercialization. A 10-mark question that we have to answer in 150 words. Now, it has been asked from the subject of technology or science and technology, and the topic is issues relating to the intellectual property rights. So we have to discuss about what is the present world scenario in the intellectual property rights with respect to life materials, that is the materials which are used in biotechnology or in the life sciences. Also, we have to give them reasons why there has been a less commercialization for the Indian patents. India is filing a lot more patents. We are the second, we rank second in the number of patent filed, but we are not able to commercialize those patents. So we have to give the reasons behind that. Then in approach, in introduction, we describe the intellectual property rights in the life materials. Then in body, we write the present world scenario and reasons for less commercialization of patents in India. In conclusion, we write a way forward that how we can make it more commercialization. We can more commercialize it. Starting with the introduction, globally, intellectual property rights, especially patents on life materials like the biotechnology innovations, the genetic resources, and pharmaceuticals, are central to the knowledge economy. Developed countries dominate commercialization due to strong ecosystem, and we know India is still a developing country. So, developed countries like the USA or the European Union, Japan, South Korea, and in fact China, they are also all of them are dominating commercialization due to strong IPR ecosystems. Now discussing the global scenario, countries like USA and China lead in patent filings and commercialization. And for the life sciences and the biotech, these are the major contributors to global patents and often backed by strong research and development and venture capital. Now, India's paradox is that we file high number of patents, but yet we are not able to commercialize them. So in India, the paradox is high patents, low commercialization. And what are the reasons behind that? Weak industry academia linkages. So most patents are filed by academic institutions with limited market orientation. So there has been a lack of the industry academia or industry or education or the academics uh, uh, weak linkage or weak collaboration between the educational or research institutions and the industry. Okay, industries, they have the resources, they have the market access, but they lack in research. The research is done by the academic institutions and they file the patents, but they lack the market access or the market orientation. Second is the funding gaps. There is a lack of venture capital and incubation support hinders scaling. So in India, there is a lack of venture capital in the patent filing or in the scientific research and development. Third is the regulatory delays or the administrative inefficiencies. So complex biosafety, approval and licensing frameworks delay the product rollout. Finally, we have the lack of market awareness. So inventors often lack knowledge of commercial viability and market needs. So the scientists or the academicians who have developed the patent, they are unaware or they lack knowledge about the commercial viability of their patent or of their product that they have made, and they are unaware of the market needs. So that is why there should be a very strong industry academia linkage, and the developed countries, they have this strong industry academia linkages. So, in conclusion, to bridge the gap between the patent filing and commercialization, our ultimate objective should be that we should be able to bridge this gap, because currently there is a huge gap between patent filing. We are filing more and more of patents, but we are not able to commercialize them. Okay, we have to bridge this gap. But how do we bridge this gap? India needs robust institutional support, policy reforms, and a stronger industry academia collaboration. Now, this is the key phrase over here. Okay. So, the PDF of these model answers will be available to you